This isn't just a modern problem, is it? This has happened throughout church history.
Oh, definitely. Let's look at a few examples. Think about the early church. They had such fire, such passion. They turned the world upside down. But by the medieval period, the church had become this massive institution. It was more concerned with power, politics, and maintaining control than with the gospel. The life had drained out.
Then came the Reformation. Luther, Calvin, and others rediscovered the gospel. It was incredible, this explosion of biblical truth and spiritual renewal. But what happened after the Reformation? Within a generation or two, Protestant churches fell into rigid dogmatism. They were fighting over fine points of doctrine while losing the heart of the gospel.
Or look at Methodism. John Wesley and the early Methodists were on fire. They preached in fields, they served the poor, they transformed England. But within decades of Wesley's death, Methodism had become respectable and comfortable. The fire was gone.
And the Puritans. They started with such depth, such passion for God. But their descendants in New England often ended up with a cold, rational faith that had lost the warmth of relationship with God.
So this is a pattern. Revival and passion cool into institution and orthodoxy. Why does this keep happening?
I think it's because it's easier to maintain a system than to maintain a relationship. Systems are predictable. Relationships require constant attention, vulnerability, risk. We naturally drift toward what's comfortable and controllable.
That makes sense. And here's something interesting. There's actually a link between idolatry and dead orthodoxy. They can feed into each other.
How so?
Well, think about legalism. When we create all these rules and regulations about what makes someone a good Christian, we're essentially creating a false God. We're saying that following these rules is what saves us or makes us acceptable to God. That's idolatry. But at the same time, we're reducing faith to a checklist, to dead orthodoxy. There's no life, no grace, no relationship.
The Pharisees are the perfect example of this. They had impeccable theology in many ways. They knew Scripture inside and out. But Jesus reserved his harshest words for them. Why? Because they had turned faith into a system of rules and missed the heart of God entirely.
Right. In John chapter 8, Jesus tells some of these religious leaders, "You belong to your father, the devil." That's shocking. These were the most religious people around, but their religion had become an idol, and it was dead.
So what's the antidote? How do we avoid these dangers?
The antidote is living relational faith. It's knowing God, not just knowing about God. It's letting our theology lead us into deeper relationship, not replace it.
One practical way to cultivate this is through spiritual disciplines, not as a checklist, but as ways of connecting with God. Take Sabbath, for example. Real Sabbath isn't just about following a rule. It's about stopping our striving, our producing, our consuming, and simply being with God. It's about trust and relationship.
I love that. It's about integration, right? Bringing together our head, our heart, and our hands, our beliefs, our affections, and our actions.
Exactly. Jesus said in John chapter 4, verse 24, God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Notice both elements. In truth, that's the head, right theology. But in the spirit, that's the heart, genuine relationship and experience of God. We need both.
So, as we close, I want to leave us with some challenging questions for reflection. First, has my faith become a system or a song? Am I going through motions, or am I experiencing the joy of relationship with God?
Second question, do I still tremble at his word? Or has Scripture become so familiar that it no longer moves me, challenges me, transforms me?
Third, do I seek to be right or to be close? Am I more concerned with winning theological arguments or with knowing God more deeply?
And finally, have I lost my first love? In Revelation, Jesus tells the church at Ephesus that they've done so much right, but they've abandoned their first love. They need to return. Maybe some of us need to return too.
These are hard questions, but they're so important. The Christian life isn't meant to be a cold intellectual exercise or a system of rules. It's meant to be a living, breathing, transforming relationship with a God who loves us.
So let's guard against both dangers. Let's reject the idols, whether they're material possessions, ideologies, or even our own theological systems. And let's refuse to settle for dead orthodoxy. Let's pursue the living God with our whole hearts, minds, and souls.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this conversation has challenged you as much as it's challenged us. Until next time, keep pursuing God with passion and truth.